Hey, what's up? Welcome to Crazy Beats Big. I'm Kevin Romeo, your host, and this is powered by Rhino. This is a podcast where we celebrate entrepreneurial spirit through stories of people overcoming big odds to do awesome things. And today I'm sitting down with a couple of my favorite dudes, Cam Brieden and Jason Lay of Better Drinking Culture.
Stoked to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Super excited to have these guys on. I actually met Cam about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I'm not totally sure how we got connected, but we got connected because of the Better Drinking Culture that you've started, and we call it an organization, the Better Drinking Culture organization. And so I'm gonna let you guys tell me what Better Drinking Culture is, and we'll just let the audience know what it is, and then we'll kind of dive in a little bit more.
Yeah.
So what's Better Drinking Culture?
Do it, Cam.
No, Jay, you want to take it?
You want to tell the founding story?
Sure. I'll start with the story.
Yeah.
So Better Drinking Culture, we call it BDC, was founded by a group of friends sharing stories. And one of those key stories was my story, which is actually my mom's story. My mom's in long-term recovery from an addiction to alcohol. And that really influenced and impacted our family growing up, as well as my decision and choice to be a non-drinker. And obviously, growing up in high school and in college, like that's always a topic of conversation. Like, why is Cam not drinking? And that was a hard story to share until, I grew up and was able to educate myself on what addiction was, and just had the courage to share my family story a little bit more with my friends. And it's interesting because when I was sharing that story, whether one-on-one or with some people, when I became vulnerable, they became vulnerable as well, and they shared with me their stories. They either had a loved one as well, or knew somebody, or they had a negative experience with alcohol. And so it really just a lot of sharing of stories, a lot of of some of these negative experiences, and we kind of all came together and found that a lot of these negative experiences with alcohol was the result of just drinking way too much. It's not alcohol. It was just drinking too much of it. And that's when the idea of Better Drinking Culture was formed. It's like, hey, if we all just drink better, all these negative experiences either wouldn't have happened or don't have to happen again. Yeah. And then we, said, well, let's, nobody's really kind of branded this lifestyle or this way of drinking yet. This binge drinking culture is very much glamorized, and it's what you think drinking is about when you grow up in high school or in college.
Yep. Yeah, it's the only thing you see. Mm-hmm. And it's packaged to look fun and cool and harmless.
Yeah.
And then the wheels fall off the bus.
I absolutely remember that being the expectation in high school was how many beers can you drink? Absolutely. And you don't even question it. Just like you're more of a man or whatever if you drink 15 12, 15 light beers or whatever, macro beers.
Yeah. You want to crush a dirty 30.
Yeah, right.
I remember my friend, little sister, we were in the garage and everyone's drinking beers. She comes.
How old?
She was younger than us. And so we were
Wow.
probably 16, 17. Went in, grabbed a bottle of beer, popped off the cap with her teeth, started drinking it. And I that was a moment I'll never forget. I'm like, dang, this is crazy.
Also, I'm not picking a fight with that girl either.
Yeah.
How old was she, do you think? Would you imagine?
Probably a couple of years younger than we were.
How old were you?
I mean, this is high school, maybe 17 at the.
So she's like 15.
Yikes!
Yeah. Wow, that's like some Friday Night Lights stuff.
Yeah.
Something. Anyway, so that's how you had the idea. That's how your backstory kind of parlayed into this mission. What do you try to do now? What's the goal? What's the goal of Better Drinking Culture?
Yeah. So, I mean, after it was, we kind of came, so a little bit more to that story was, we came together and we're like, hey, this is a great idea. Let's create this manifesto. What is a better drinking culture? What does that mean? And we started this manifesto, and the first line is, we believe mornings are better without hangovers. Life's better without regrets, and so on. And then we printed some T-shirts with the logo that one of our friends made, and we threw an event, and we started sharing our stories online, and more people, found us, started following us on social media, and just wanted to be a part of this thing that was happening. And then it just kind of grew beyond what we expected it to be other than just a group of friends in West Michigan. And that's when, I connected with Jay and said, hey, I think we have something here. Something's going on. We got to figure out what it is and what to do with it.
Because it was gaining traction and momentum, I think, like Cam alluded to, like a lot bigger and faster than those friends had intended. They identified the core problem, that too much alcohol was the catalyst for every negative consequence associated with alcohol. And then it was just like, oh, shoot. Like, there are people out there who do identify with the idea that I don't need to get blackout drunk to, one, enjoy alcohol, or two, to have a good time. So how do we create a platform that empowers other people to feel better about having a healthier relationship with alcohol?
Yeah. And so what you're saying is what I'm understanding is that you are trying to create a thing that you're trying to create a movement. You're trying to create an identity around this middle ground where you don't have to completely abstain, but you don't have to go the way of our standard culture, what seems to be what people fall into, which is overconsumption, just because they don't have any framework for how they think about it. And you're trying to change the entire culture of drinking in America. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah, the mission is to shift our culture's relationship with alcohol in a healthier and more positive direction. And you're right. So and I know we'll dive into this more, but we're unique because we're not anti-alcohol. Right. So we're not prevention, and we're not on the other side of the spectrum. We're not recovery. There are great organizations and peer groups for both segments, for both of those demographics and audiences. So we've identified that middle ground, people who believe in moderation, and we want to inspire and encourage mindful drinking. So every time you pick up a glass, you're very intentional about yourself, the people around you, the environment you're in, so that when you drink, you can focus on the craft of that product and having an amazing experience that you will be able to remember tomorrow. Like, that's the hook. Our tagline is, because hangovers suck. So, what good is it to have an amazing night if you can't remember it tomorrow?
Yeah, that's good. So, Jason, how'd you come to know Cam? I think there's a little story behind that.
Yeah.
You want to tell everyone about that?
Yeah. So, outside of BDC, I'm an enthusiast. I love my craft beer. Getting really into bourbon. I love a good glass of red wine. And I started in 2014. I started building an exit strategy for myself to get out of the typical corporate 9-to-5 grind. And I knew I wanted to do 9-to-5, what I loved doing, as much as I did when I clocked out. So I started planning a transition in my professional career into the world of craft beer. And I had this dream about a concept for a TV show, and I was really, really fortunate to be blessed with a lot of people around me to help turn that thing into a reality. So that show was called Modern Ahabs. I filmed a pilot episode in Grand Rapids on KBS, Founders, one of their most popular, iconic beers. So the concept of the show was capturing, the chaos and the hunt of craft beer enthusiasts seeking their bucket list beers. So I filmed that show in March of 2016, and then I premiered it in Grand Rapids in that summer. And then Cam, after it had been premiered, Cam got a hold of it somehow, saw the pilot episode. I won't put words into his mouth, but, he thought I was pretty awesome on camera.
Yeah.
But anyways, he's like, all right, I kind of want to check this guy out. Maybe there's some synergy here between like what this guy is doing, in his personal pursuits, that might be some sort of fit for BDC. So he reached out to me via Modern Ahabs, and I responded. And what's crazy is he just asked me if I'd like to get together for lunch, and I jumped at the chance. He tells me in the email who he is, and he tells me like a little elevator pitch on BDC. And what's really unique about the story, and this is where like I truly believe like we were put in each other's paths long before we actually encountered. I actually said, yeah, man, I know what BDC is all about. I went to an event of yours last summer. So I was actually at the first BDC event in the summer of 2015, thrown by MLive Media Group, and a buddy of mine, Eric Holkren, invited me to go to this event to like scope it out, give some feedback, and BDC put on this event with MLive. So I walk into this beer and food pairing event, and
where was the event?
Cheney Place in downtown Grand Rapids.
Right.
So summer 2015. So I walk into this event. I've got a free ticket, all the beer I can drink. So I walk in, and everyone pouring at all of these stations, they're all rocking a different colored Better Drinking Culture t-shirt. I had never heard of it, but I was intrigued enough that I wanted to know more. But the funny part of the story is I was more concerned with all the free beer I could drink. So, so truthfully, I get good and buzzed up at this event, and on my way out, I stopped by the BDC booth, and it's kind of embarrassing, but I don't remember if I talked to Cam or not, but I talked to somebody at the BDC table, and I was just like, tell me about Better Drinking Culture. And they did.
Everyone listening who's ever been drunk knows that drunk voice that you just did.
Yeah.
Trying to recall I said something, I don't know. You've heard people talking that, you've done.
Yeah. So, and it was like, tell me about Better Drinking Culture. I was probably a little slower, tell me about better drinking. Anyway, so they tell me. And the one thing I do very clearly remember saying is, where were you when I was in college? Because what they told me in that 2-minute conversation changed my life. And I bought a t-shirt, and that was in the summer of 2015. And in the fall of 2016, I get an email from the guy who started it. We met for lunch. Cam orders a water. I order a beer. And really quickly, we just clicked, connected, and shared our stories. He told me how he got there, how BDC was founded. He told me about his mom, and I had no reason not to share my story about my relationship with alcohol. And historically, it hasn't been so great. And we kind of brainstormed. We dreamt a little bit. I was so stoked on BDC, and then I tell him, man, I wish I would have thought of this.
Yeah.
And we parted ways after lunch. I remember shooting him an email, and I'm like, hey, what if BDC did this? Or wouldn't it be cool if? And then I was like, if you ever need any help or a volunteer, I'd love to work an event and sell t-shirts for you, And so he invited me out to lunch a couple weeks later. He asked me a couple, deeper questions, and he tapped into something, and I told him some random drinking horror story, and I started crying at lunch. And while I'm crying, he asked me if I wanted to be the CEO of the company. And I didn't know I was sitting in a job interview. And I'm just like, I'll do it. I want to do it. And like the rest is history.
Yeah. So my take on that.
Maybe I totally got it all wrong.
No, that's exactly how it rolled out. But from my perspective, when I met with Jay the first time at Hopcat, we were, I knew instantly that. Actually, prior to that, I knew as a non-drinker, one, I do have a place in better drinking culture.
For sure.
Because we believe alcohol should be a choice and not an expectation. At the same time,
can I go on record real quick and say, like, this isn't a plug for BDC, but, you know, even though we're not anti-alcohol, there is a place for everyone at our table. Everyone's welcome, regardless of what your relationship with alcohol is, including a non-relationship. And we'll get into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I knew I wasn't going to be the one that led and scaled this thing, you know, across the country that we envisioned at that time. I knew that, you know, we needed to have a leader, like a CEO, of someone who did drink, who had a BDC story, who understands what we're about and where we're going with this. And so that was just something that person I was looking for a year. And when I had met with Jay, I just knew right away. And he didn't know at the time, but it's like, wow, here he is.
Yeah, I'm just trying to help you volunteer and sell shirts.
So sell shirts.
So then we met the second time, and you know, I extended the opportunity to him, and and it's been fantastic ever since. And you know, to this day, Jay, I mean, it's all the things that Jay has done for this movement, and the stuff that we can talk about, what's in the pipeline. I mean, it's just further validation that he was the right guy for helping to lead this thing.
Hey, how's that feel?
It's awesome, man. It's it's humbling, it's flattering, but it was the most perfect thing to happen to me in my life at that time. You know, they always say, you know, right place, right time. And I wasn't seeking BDC out, you know, I just knew they existed. You know, when I bought the shirt, I followed them on social media, and I was just like, yeah, I can totally get down with these guys. And every time I'd put that shirt on, this was, you know, a year before I joined BDC. Every time I put that shirt on, it sounds silly, right? But it was like I was putting on this like cape or this, you know, superhero suit, right? And I just felt like if I had this shirt on when I went out, like I deserved better. And it just putting the shirt on, like, changed the way I thought about every drink that I picked up. And, you know, I'll go on record, like, I'm still human. There are times that I have to be careful with how much I consume, because when we drink too much, you know, that's when things go sideways, and it happens to the best of us. And we know that people who love what we're doing, you know, if they're at all intimidated by this idea of perfection, like if you buy a BDC shirt or you follow us on social media, that it means that you can't ever make a mistake. That really couldn't be further from the truth. You know, another part of our
people are afraid of being a hypocrite.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I could see where that's a tough one. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah. And we get that, right? Like, so we don't shame or judge anyone because they had a rough night with the bottle last night. Like, we'll be the first one to put our arm around you and say, hey man, like, today is a new day. Tomorrow's a new day. Like, you have an opportunity to do it better, and that's it. You know, so we love, support, and respect all of those people, and we just want to lift them up and let them know that they can do it better than the way they've seen it done. And we just want to leave this place a little bit better than the way so many of us have found it.
Yeah. So something you said about college, I just wanted to add my own spin on it, because you were saying that I think you were saying, like, most of the bad experiences that you had during college was a result of drinking too much alcohol. I just totally resonate with that. And I would say, just more than anything, I think when we were discussing this a while back, that was the part that really stuck out to me, because I can very much see in my past, high school a little bit and college for sure, where you said that situation plus alcohol, plus not having any sort of defining parameters about my relationship with alcohol, led to almost any situation I can look back on with regret. You know, otherwise, college is fine, but those are the situations that would make me very excited for what you guys are doing. So
Yeah, and it sucks. I mean, in college, generally, like if you have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, in most cases, so do the rest of the people in your peer group. You know, so you're this skewed version of normalcy, or this distorted way that we think we should interact with alcohol is only reinforced because when we go out to the bar or we go to the house party, it's with the people who are, unfortunately stuck in the same boat that we're in because they just don't know any better. And because you're cool if you drink, you're cool if you drink a lot.
Yeah. And I know that BDC is totally, for men and women both, but just being a man, I know there's a big part of it where it's like a manlyhood thing.
For sure.
Or a manhood thing.
Yeah.
I can't even say manhood. I said manlyhood. So I lost any credibility. I had to be manly.
Yeah. It's a rite of passage.
Yeah. You have to be able to hold your liquor, it's that kind of idea. And, sure, I get why that exists because you don't want someone who has one beer and passes out or whatever. Like, I understand why you'd say that, but at the same time, that's what's driving. I think it's what's burrowed deep in the hearts of a lot of young men is that idea that like, I can still perform in one way or another after so many drinks.
Yeah, and the thing is, the crazier or the dumbest you can be, you're rewarded incrementally. The more outrageous or stupid the drunk stunt is, the cooler you are at the party.
Do you find that? And two, I think often about how thankful I am that I grew up without Facebook and YouTube. Is that just exacerbating, do you think, in today's climate where getting drunk, filming yourself on YouTube, frankly, I don't even know because that's a culture I'm not even connected to. But just thinking about it, I imagine there's tons of high schooler kids trying to outdo each other for.
Well, that's absolutely, and I think it's hard because it's even if we showed a picture or a video of a bunch of people having a crazy awesome time, people assume alcohol is involved when the reality there could be no alcohol present, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so like culture has really tied this thing of the more you drink, the more fun you have.
Yeah.
And it just builds on itself because nobody's broken that stigma to say you don't have to drink to have a great time. You don't have to drink so much to have a great time.
Why do you think it is that way? Because I'll be honest, I've been to weddings and I've been a purveyor of that because I've been to weddings where there's no alcohol and I'm like, this wedding is ending at 9:30 sharp. There's no one dancing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that people can't have a good time. So I'm saying, but that's part of the culture and it can be changed for sure. But I think people play into it because they're like, I need a drink to dance, or I need a, whatever.
It's funny you said, so as a non-drinker,
Yeah, we
right?
were just talking about this.
Yeah, like I feel like I've lived this experiment where I grew up in high school, and today I still don't drink, and yet in college or at weddings, I'm the first one on the dance floor, last one to leave. Like,
is that like a thing though? You say to yourself, like, I'm going to show them. Is it a little bit that?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't know. I just love to dance, but I think what's sorry, I'm not good at dancing either, so don't film me.
Listen to me.
But
I have zero problem with someone loving to dance is not good at dancing. I think, people should dance, and that's that, and have a good time.
You do you.
Yeah, you do you, man.
But I can't tell you how many times in high school and in college at weddings where people come up to me and they ask, like, Cam, like, and they know I don't drink. It's like, how are you having such an awesome time not drinking? Like, how are you out here dancing without drinking? And everybody like comes to me thinking that it's this hard thing to do. And and like at that time I was like, oh, it's hard, but I'm strong, it is. And I just didn't know how to answer the question because internally it was super easy for me because I had made the decision I wasn't going to drink. I don't have to make that decision every time alcohol is put in front of me. And I think, and this is my theory, is that I went through those awkward stages. Like I went through those times of like, I need courage to go out and be that person where everyone's kind of looking at, and I know I'm not dancing all that great, but it is what it is. But that was like, I felt like that was something that I was able to build resiliency within myself and build into who I was as a person and identify, like build my own identity. Right. And I didn't have alcohol as a crutch to lean on. And because of that, I think I was just able to learn how to have an awesome time without alcohol. At the same time, I wasn't judging anybody else. And I think that was a big key for me in my relationships with my friends was, when early in my high school days, like I knew I didn't get invited to those parties and it sucked. Like, it stung a little bit. But over time, like I ended up going to those parties and people admired me for my decision. So it's super interesting, having grown up kind of like on the outside of this and kind of run this experiment through my life, and get other people's perspectives from, me on the outside, if that made any sense. I don't know.
Yeah. I think Cam is, incredibly wise beyond his years because his heart is so big that he recognizes his non-relationship with alcohol should not unfairly hold bias against those who do drink. And I think that's part of the key in him recognizing that in order to scale BDC and in order for us to be authentic and really real with what we do, someone in the driver's seat has had to like go to the edge and back.
Right.
And I think it's really key that he brings that perspective to BDC because everything we do, we sit down and we talk about it and we're able to represent every angle of the conversation. So it's not one-sided or it's not tilted in one particular way that could potentially isolate this group over here. We're really big about making sure that we're building an inclusive environment where everyone feels comfortable, whether they're drinking or not. Like when we go out, it's not an awkward thing when he orders not a beer.
Have you guys thought about going to companies and talking about BDC? I just had this light bulb go off. Like, you should go to big companies who are focusing on like inclusion and talk about BDC.
That's good.
We just had a big meeting with a pretty big company, like Fortune, whatever, 200. And everyone's making a push to say that they're an inclusive company. And they were talking actually about how they're starting to get away from using the word diversity because it so often just distills down quickly into like racial diversity.
Yeah.
And they don't want to make it just all about racial stuff. It's more about inclusivity with LGBTQ. Obviously ethnicity is part of that. But it might just be people with physical disabilities, although they use a different word than disability. It escapes me. Just any type of, they want to make sure that their organization is seen and understood as a company that is inclusive to anyone, right?
Yeah.
And what you just said, you dropped the inclusivity word.
Yeah.
Light bulb kind of went off. You guys should, I don't know. I can give you some contacts.
I mean, we'll gladly get paid to come and talk to a company. When we're talking about like, that being inclusive and considerate of other people, like I just want to throw this out there. It's like, here's a very easy, practical way that you can support your peers and live a BDC lifestyle. So like when you're out with your friends, whether it's for a meal or just to hang out, and your server or your bartender goes around the table and they're taking everybody's drink order, and it gets to your buddy and he or she says, no, I'm good. I'll just have a water. Please don't look at them like they just killed your dog. Don't ask them, why aren't you drinking? oh my gosh, what's wrong? It's none of your business. It's a non-issue. Move on. You got to support those people. And you can't make someone's choice to not drink for either a day, a week, or their life be contingent on how close you become with them as another person. Like, it just should not be a factor.
Right. That's a good tip. Is there any, I mean, you guys probably have that a lot. I mean, I honestly find myself, as we're talking, thinking about myself when I was 20, because I'm 34 now. How old are you, Kim?
31.
31?
40 on July 4th.
We talked about this last time. You look dang good for that. Nice.
I appreciate that. That's on record.
Oh, also fun fact.
Don't edit that out.
We didn't say that at the beginning, but last time we interviewed these guys, Jason was sporting a pretty gnarly mustache, and we just felt like it wasn't meant to be that was put out to the public.
Yeah, those technical difficulties happen for a reason. That mustache should not have gotten out to the masses.
Jason snuck into Rhino at night and stabbed all of our equipment, and he realized what it looked like. Anyway, I find myself thinking back to how I was when I was 20, though, and I do remember, I don't know if I necessarily shamed someone into thinking that, well, why aren't you drinking, bro? I probably did. You know, it's very...
Yeah, it's easy.
It's like that whole idea of, you don't want to see anyone else change, or, people that are drinking want other drinkers in there, that whole network idea. That's powerful. And I'm glad you kind of just throw out that very practical, tactical tip for people.
Just don't do it.
Think about.
I don't mean it to hurt anyone's feelings, but I'm also not going to apologize for just being honest. Like, it's a non-issue and it's none of your business.
Yeah.
And if you're a female, the answer shouldn't always be, oh, are you pregnant? Like, no, maybe she just doesn't want to drink today, right?
Yeah, don't ever ask a woman if she's pregnant.
Yeah, if you're not...
That's another tip.
Yeah, you should never, ever just talk about the subject at all whatsoever until the babies exist.
And then still don't.
Yeah. But were you pregnant at one point when you had that kid? Were you pregnant? Okay, that's safe to say, yeah. You must have been pregnant then. Maybe not. Maybe that's not safe to say. I don't know. I know what you're saying. So Cam, one thing, I know we brushed on this a little bit, but something I just think is so brilliant about what BDC is you talked to me about that idea of creating an identity that people can apply to themselves. Will you just dig into that a little bit?
Yeah.
Coming from high school to college and all that.
Yeah. Let me try to dig into this, and it might go a couple different directions here, but sure. I think one of the most influencing factors in regards to yourself and the life that you end up living is built around your identity and coming to terms with who you are as a person. And, for me growing up, that's what it was all about. And I think everyone's always trying to figure out who they are, right? What are their gifts? What are their talents? Like, what am I supposed to do here on earth? Like, what is my mission? Like, was I born for something special? And I truly believe we all are. But when it comes down to the identity in terms of alcohol, like I said before, it was an easy decision for me because I had made that decision that I wasn't going to drink. Because of the things that was happening in my life. And it was an easy decision for me, probably because I never drank and because, I didn't maybe know what it was like to be drunk, but it was just an easy decision. And I built that into my identity. But part of that identity too was respecting my friends for the choices they made and saying, I'm not going to try to, shame them or judge them or, try to convince them that they should not drink like me. It was just loving them and respecting them. And so that built into my identity. And then, when the idea of better drinking culture came to be, drafting that manifesto was drafting an identity. We believe mornings are better without a hangover. We believe life's better without regrets. And we believe that that's an identity that everyone can grab onto, whether you drink or don't drink. Mm-hmm. And if we can, and wearing the BDC t-shirt, it's, people wear brands because they feel like they identify with it. Right. Yep. And that's essentially what we're doing is we're creating an identity for people to latch on to so they can express that identity to those around them. So that when if we didn't know each other, Kevin, and we went up to a bar and I saw you wearing a BDC t-shirt and I know what BDC is, like, I feel like I know something about you, right? Like you choose to live this and to love and respect all people. And so, I do think identity is super powerful, and identity is rooted into branding. And that's, something that Rhino does brilliantly as well. And what you guys do. So
it's a flag in the ground, this is who I am.
The thing I wanted to add to that, the thing that really sticks in my mind, this is what I tell everyone when I get a chance to talk about you guys, is that coming out of college or coming out of high school, a lot of kids don't have a stance on where they are with alcohol.
Exactly.
They take it as it comes, situation by situation, and they lose every time. You're never going to win that battle. It's always going to end bad if you don't have a stake in the ground, like you said. That says this is who I am. So when I go to college and I'm confronted with that situation, I know how I'm going to make that decision before it happens. And then I don't fall, quote unquote, victim to a circumstance that I could have had a better outcome had I made a decision, had I had that be part of my identity. And I don't know if you had a stat for that, but you said something to the effect of, I don't know, whatever percentage of kids coming out of high school don't have a stance on how their relationship with alcohol, and therefore it always worsens when they hit college. So
there's not a public stat on it, but through our conversations with a lot of people on, whether they choose to wait. The big one is, did you choose to wait till you're 21 before you start drinking?
Yeah, no.
And some people said, the ones that do wait said, I had a conversation with my parents. My parents really encouraged me to wait till I was 21. And I said yes. And they had made that decision before they went to college that I'm going to wait. For those, and having conversations too with parents who have kids going into college, asking them what is your kid's stance on alcohol? And they're like, well, I think they're just going to figure it out when they get to college. And most often, they're going to drink.
Figuring it out means some hard times.
Yeah.
The house is always going to win.
And yeah, exactly. And here's why I think some people go, well, everyone needs hard times to become mature or whatever. And I go, there's plenty of hard times. You don't need to add getting drunk and making bad decisions to that list. That you don't need to aid them in that quest of finding hard times.
I'll tell you, you do not have to hit rock bottom with alcohol in order to have some sort of invaluable life experience that helps you get through life.
Right.
Because I'm here to tell you, no, it is not going to benefit you in any way, shape, or form to say that you have these scars on your body because of drinking, or you got 3 DUIs because you didn't learn your lesson.
Yeah.
That stuff doesn't help you.
Yeah.
You don't have to get to that point.
Yeah. So I think people that follow Rhino or maybe know who I am, maybe if they're listening to this, they know this, but we had done the Michigan beer film way back in 2012. And I kind of grew up thinking that neither one of my parents drank really. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because they were particularly anti-drinking. I think it was just for whatever reason, and it feels like a really random circumstance, but both of them were just kind of just didn't really do it. And so, but my uncles did and my grandpa, it's kind of beer was around. And then, in high school, me and my buddies, I became kind of a jock. I became kind of that athlete guy who wanted to be cool and drink on the weekends. And we used to have parties at neighboring towns with the other football teams and all that high school life. And then, so for me, but I kind of put that aside after college. College definitely drank a bunch. And then after college, I stepped away from that in a lot of ways. But then with craft beer, it started becoming much more of a thing that I would have kind of boundaries, but I would always let them float. It was very loose boundaries. Mm-hmm. I was filling out an online, so Cam had asked me to do an interview So I was completing this like kind of written interview on his website, and one of the questions was, "What are your personal rules with alcohol?" And I couldn't honestly say I had any. I had rules that I could say, but it's actually kind of an interesting case study on respect and trust. But I knew you, and I was like, I'm not going to lie to Cam and say this BS rule that I don't follow, and I couldn't say it. And I think that's actually part of the story that I find interesting, just to say the least, because I think in other contexts, like if you just put me on the spot, if someone was interviewing me and said, "What are your rules?" I'd say, "Oh yeah, I generally only really quick little generally only drink 2 beers ever at a time or whatever." Yeah. But I couldn't say that with any sort of integrity in this written format, and I was like, I gotta reevaluate myself. So that led me to a lot of self-reflection about my relationship with alcohol, and as you said, I'll still have days where I'm like, I generally have a rule of 2 drinks max. But if I'm in a really safe situation, if I'm at home, yada, yada, it's really easy to have friends over for a weekend or a barbecue, and I end up drinking 4 beers while we're cooking out.
And that's okay. We tell everyone that, we believe you should drink within your own personal limits, and only you know what your limits are. So, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to, slap you on the hand because you had 4 beers because you had some buddies over and we're cooking out.
What would I have to do to get a hand slap from you? Ooh. That's what I want to know.
Something naughty.
Oh gosh, we're gonna have to leave that right in the podcast. One thing we haven't touched on that I know is important to the BDC dialogue is drink responsible.
Oh yeah, the R word.
Yeah, everyone who watches television over the last 2 decades knows that at the end of every beer commercial, there's a "Please drink responsible" or that tagline or the little subtext there. Why is that not enough?
You want to take it or want me to?
Go for it. I'm sure I've got something to say.
Did you guys get bought by Bud Light now, and now you can't say that?
We say dilly dilly.
Okay.
Do you know why? That's a Bud Light slogan.
It's so dumb. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No disrespect to Bud Light, but that should have been crushed before it hit the air.
Yeah.
It's their version of Cheers, and it's kind of awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Bud Light.
Yeah.
So the drink responsibly thing is something that people when they hear about BDC with in the first 10 seconds, they're like, "Oh, you're drink responsibly."
Oh yeah, I drink responsibly.
Yeah, I drink responsibly. And we I guess we cringe every time we hear that because so in the early stages of BDC, we talked with a lot of students, and we got student groups together that tried to form some chapters and really try to rally behind the BDC movement at their school. And interesting enough, we get a lot of fraternities and sororities that that are interested in this because they have stories, right? And it's usually seniors. But in these dialogues with them, what they've communicated is "Oh yeah, we always drink responsibly. We throw our keys into the basket, and we make sure we have a safe ride home, and then we just get blackout drunk. We get wasted." Yeah. And it's just okay, I think they're missing something here.
They're very confident about drinking responsibly.
Yeah. And what struck me was I think people don't understand what drink responsibly means, or maybe drink responsibly has, although well-intended, been completely misrepresented, because when you hear companies talk about drink responsibly, they always tag it to get a safe ride home, right?
Yeah.
And what we're finding is that a lot of people think that that's a green light to get to drink as much as you want, as long as you get a safe ride home.
It's all about not drunk driving.
It's all about not drunk driving. And I think that, that possibly is having a reverse effect to our culture of saying it's okay to get blackout drunk.
That's interesting because we're so affected by big ad campaigns, especially kids that grew up. I think our era, TV was everything. You saw a ton of ads. And it's funny because there's at the same time of those, the Bud Light frogs that were so big way back in the day, and just all the shticks that have been over the years. But right alongside those, you do see anti-drunk driving campaigns that are very prominent. And I think those two things combined the drink responsible tag at the end of the beer commercials and the anti-drunk driving ads kind of formed this new understanding of, hey, as long as we don't drive home and kill someone or whatever, zero tolerance, then we're okay.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's what it's been distilled down to.
Yeah.
Is just like Cam said, you know, all of these students, they're just like, yeah, we get blackout drunk. And then I call an Uber. And then I spill out of the cab onto my front porch, pass out, and then some don't wake up because their buddies go, no, he's good. He just needs to sleep it off. Like, you don't understand, like, what's still going on inside your body. You just can't get somebody home in their bed or leave them on the couch and assume that they're okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like, it's tough because a lot of people have a strong aversion to that because they might be like, well, we love having stories with our buddies like that. It's like, here's the reality though. You can always have fun stories that don't involve you getting penises drawn on your face with a Sharpie. Like, that does not have to be. There's so many ways to develop lasting memories and good stories that are, I would argue, much better stories, and stories that have meaning.
Yeah.
Like, what if your story was you and your friends? I don't want to sound like I'll probably get laughed out at here by all the bros, whoever listen to this, that, you know, disagree with me on this. But what if your story was you and your friends like went and like served at a gospel mission or a homeless shelter for the night, and then, you know, went and had a beer and just talked about it and like served people, you know, just total opposite end of the spectrum, obviously, in terms of, you know, whatever. But anyway.
Well, you mentioned earlier about, you know, that like, I mean, it's peer pressure, right? It's like, come on, dude, have another one. Come on, have another one. Let's do a shot. Let's do a round of shots, right? You know, they're doing it because underneath all that enthusiasm to get drunk, they're roping you in because, let's be honest, misery loves company. You don't want to be the only guy hitting it that hard.
Oh, yeah.
Because you need that support system who's encouraging you to keep going that hard. And I'll tell you, you don't need those stories. You know, I've got those stories. I have the physical scars on my body that are proof that I drank way, way beyond my limits. Yeah. But the thing is, you know, they may be hilarious in the moment, right? At face value, it might be hilarious. But I'm telling you, when the party's over and everyone's gone home, no one is there to help clean up the mess except you. You're the one who's got to own it. You got to clean up the puke on the carpet, right? You've got to patch the hole that your buddy punched in the wall. So what was maybe hilarious in the moment is now turned into regret. And when that regret settles, you are left with some really deep, harmful shame that can destroy a person, and then it puts you in that cycle.
Well, going back to what you were talking about, like culture, right? And like social media, like those are the things, those are the crazy stuff that happens is what gets the likes, right? And I think
the shares.
In the shares, because it's crazy, it's out there, and people like, that's what people eat up, right? And you know, how our culture truly is going to change isn't going to be BDC doing it.
Right.
BDC is the people who prescribe to it, but it's going to be people making that change. And that's what BDC is all about. It's about empowering people to stand up in those situations where if 10 of their guys are like, oh yeah, let's go get shots, whatever. If there's one guy in there that can stand up and just say, hey, that's great. You guys can do your thing. I'll join you guys, but I'm not going to do that. Like, I'll have one, you know, I'm not going to have 10. And that might empower the person standing next to him to say, I'm so glad he, you know,
that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I'll do that too.
Yeah.
And then you get this change to happen. And when you're scrolling through your buddy's, you know, Instagram and you're seeing these pictures, like, don't like it.
Yeah.
You know,
just don't double tap that.
Don't double tap that. And that's those. It takes courage, but those are the things that slowly going to start tilting the pendulum back towards what a healthier drinking culture is going to be. And it's not going to be easy, but it's got to happen.
I want to add one thing on what you were saying.
Yeah.
The last thing you were saying about how when those things happen, something profound in I think what you're saying, because yes, when the party's over, you're left cleaning up the mess.
Yeah.
That's literal, and that's like in the now.
Yep.
But that's extended to your entire course of your life as well.
Oh, for sure.
When those people are gone, you're left with the emotional trauma, the stress, the what was the word you used? The shame.
Yeah, the shame. The shame is what will eat you alive.
Young people don't understand that the things you do then. I don't feel like I'm 34. I still am the same mind and the same spirit of being that I was then.
Yeah, same.
I'm just older.
Right.
I can recall those events just like they were just happened last year.
Yeah.
So they're still form who I am, and they're little pieces of my being that like affect who I am going forward. And they do matter. Like you think like, oh, you can just, the whole idea of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. No, it doesn't.
It follows you
follows
home.
you. Yeah. What's going
it's
on?
the whole like Incredible Hulk thing, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And what's crazy is like, we don't have to get into it, but the science behind how alcohol affects your body. I mean, it can trigger different personas every single time. It's all about like how you're going into that drinking session. That's going to determine how you come out of it on the other side. So, if you're struggling in your life with anything emotional that weighs on you, that it's only going to be amplified when you drink. And if you think, alcohol is a depressant, and if you're drinking to soothe or ease, the pain of what you're dealing with, Monday through Friday, like it may numb it while you're consuming, but that buzz is going to wear off, and the problems are still going to be there, and it's only going to be amplified if you're using alcohol to mask it. And it sucks. It's a bummer. Yeah. We just don't know any better.
So you guys are based out of Grand Rapids, true or no? I think of you that, but you're not. You're in Zealand.
We're kind of in.
We need to get to Grand
we're
Rapids.
In Grand
man.
Rapids.
Quit saying
Yeah.
Well, I live in Grand Rapids, so we can say it.
Yeah,
I live in Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
Cool. So you're based out of where?
Zealand.
Sorry, okay.
Worldwide.
Worldwide.
Yeah.
Zealand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where do you spend your time though? I know you guys have been spending a lot of time down south in the Kentucky distilling kind of region of the world, and talk about that.
So before I get to Kentucky, it's important to mention, how we got there.
Sure.
We're trying to make this cultural shift, and it all starts and ends with people. But we knew that in order to bring the BDC movement across the nation and, eventually, sometime down the road worldwide, we had to be able to scale what we're doing. So we have to find a way to connect this tribe of people who desire a healthier relationship with alcohol to actually those literal places where they're consuming. So we developed a certification program that we piloted in the craft beer segment, because there's 60 of them, or give or take, within a 60-mile radius around Grand Rapids. So we had this amazing test market of craft breweries who, by nature, kind of believe in the same thing we do. They advocate for quality over quantity. So this certification program recognizes and distinguishes establishments, and it's not exclusive to breweries, bars, restaurants, nightclubs, distilleries. It recognizes
Are there
them.
nightclubs anymore? I've never
Like
seen a
Vegas,
nightclub outside
right?
of. Yeah, okay.
And we'll eventually get to Vegas, but that's a bigger animal. So the certification program recognizes these establishments for contributing to a better drinking culture, for doing the right things internally that take care of the guest, that's putting the health, safety, and well-being of the people who walk through their door before anything else. So we all know those places that will continue to serve you when you cannot put a sentence together or stand upright. They will continue to feed you drinks because it's money in the register and it's tips in the jar, right?
And they don't have a stance on it. It's just whatever, you know?
Right. So it's like, who cares if you blow your car into another one on the way home, or if you don't wake up tomorrow because I just gave you your 21st shot on your 21st birthday, right? So we developed a system that scores and can grade those establishments. And if they earn BDC certification, they get this seal of approval that they can then tout in their community that, we are going to be a leader in this movement. We're going to set the example for our industry peers, and we're going out to the front line first and saying that we deserve better, the consumer deserves better, and the industry deserves better. So we piloted that program here in West Michigan. That turned into an auxiliary product that complements the certification program that the consumer can engage in. That's called the Universal Mug Club. So without confusing you with /links, just go to universalmugclub.com and you can check that out. It's an awesome program that unlocks perks to right now over 24 establishments across Michigan and then one in Chicagoland. It unlocks access to perks at all of these places when you join the BDC because they want to reward you for drinking better. And we want to point consumers to those establishments that care. So I say all that. We piloted the program in West Michigan. Then in the meantime, the Kentucky Distillers Association, who is kind of the overseeing body of the distilleries in Kentucky, found us on social media over a year ago. And they loved what we were doing. And they, in Kentucky, care very much about promoting better drinking because if you've lived under a rock, 95% of the world's bourbon is produced in Kentucky along the Kentucky Bourbon Trail and the Urban Bourbon Trail. So they have a huge stake in curating better consumers because this is a major draw of tourism. I think there's over 1 million people who visit and tour the Kentucky Bourbon Trail every year. And these distilleries are laid out all over the state. It's not as convenient as going to downtown Grand Rapids, being able to park your car and hit 5 or 6 distilleries within, a mile radius. Like these distilleries are spread out all over the state. Some are in really rural areas. But it's this huge drive for tourism. It's this amazing experience to learn about and take this deep dive look into bourbon, its history, its cultural significance. But when you go, you're also drinking bourbon. And at some, you have the opportunity to drink full-size pours or full-size cocktails. So they saw what we were doing in Michigan with our certification program, and they invited us down to Kentucky to bring that certification program down to the distilleries along the trail. So over the last 6 months, we've spent a couple weeks really just setting up shop and living out of Kentucky, bringing the certification program to these distilleries. So it's been a really amazing experience adapting our certification program to fit this really unique culture of bourbon down there. And we're currently in the finishing stages of that process. So all of their certifications will go live, we're hopeful, by the end of August of this year. And then with that, we're able to concurrently build up this tribe of people. So now we're able to say, hey, BDC has launched into a new market. BDC tribe, you need to go rep these distilleries because they care a lot more about you than just feeding you another sample of 90 proof bourbon. So that's why we're in Kentucky.
Cool. I was kind of just looking for a general wrap up of.
Oh, sorry. Was that too?
No, it's funny. It's all good. No. Okay. So what, I guess what's coming next for you guys? What's
Yeah. So
what are you getting into?
So over the past 2 weeks, we locked Jason in a cottage on Lake Michigan, and he cranked out the first draft of the Drinker's Manifesto, which is a book that we're going to be releasing end of this summer, if I can be so bold. And what that is, it basically distills this conversation down and like tips. It's what we want to gift every 21-year-old on their 21st birthday across the country.
It's a practical, for lack of a better word, it's a practical guidebook that will help educate the uninitiated, the uneducated, the novice drinker about what it should look like to have a healthy relationship with alcohol. Because we talked about it earlier, but when kids leave home to enter college, they go from 0 to 60 in one weekend, and they have no idea how to keep the car between the lines. So, their first party, they're usually upside down over a keg at a frat party. Yeah. And so the Drinker's Manifesto is going to essentially be in a very inclusive, comforting, loving way, like calling those current practices out and then showing you how to replace them with better drinking behaviors. And it's going to be meant to be read in like one quick session. It's not going to be a boring textbook that tells you every stat about what's going to happen to you when you drink and drive. It's a real life dive into, hey, this is what it has looked like, because as a culture, we've tolerated it and we've glamorized it. This is really how it is, and we're just shooting it straight, to the drinker.
Nice.
Did I totally hijack that?
No, that's great.
It's cool. Let's wrap, because I think I actually wanted to start doing something with you guys, because we were talking about movies before we got going, or shows. Mm-hmm. Maybe on the next one, we kind of did that, so maybe it'll work out. But I thought it might be fun to start asking people just like, what are some things you're into that are totally off topic, like films, movies you're liking, or any books you're reading or anything like that. Cam, one question for you that I do find relevant to this conversation. You are really squared away. And I feel like the whole like knowing who you are and developing that identity and all that stuff. Maybe I should just before it, and you're gonna laugh if I haven't. But were you like a student of like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, like Stephen Covey? Because I like what you say kind of reminds me of that stuff, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm familiar with that book, and I'm very much a studious kind of person. Like I like to read, and I'm very much a habit person. So maybe it's a lot of just self-reflection throughout my life. I always want to identify what are my talents, what are my gifts. Being socially aware, and I don't know, but I think what it comes down to is just my identity, which if I can share this on this platform, but like being a child of God and understanding what that means. That is the core root of my identity. And so that shapes every decision that I make, and why I choose to do the things that I do. And part of that is loving people. And I just love people. I love all my friends, and that's, why this kind of started. And if I didn't care for them, I wouldn't have, gone through all the trial, because, it's not easy starting something like this. And, there's lots of sacrifices that, both Jay and I, make, to really try to get this thing out there. But I don't know if that answered your question, but that's great. I think, that's where I'm getting at with it. And whatever you're comfortable saying is what I'm comfortable hearing. So cool. And just so we have this, where do people find you again? You said universalmugclub.com. And
and I mean that's just a that's just a vanity URL to get people to check out the Universal Mug Club. Yep. But our flagship site is betterdrinkingculture.org, and we're on all the social medias at Better Drinking Culture.
Cool. Well, it's been awesome. Appreciate you guys' time.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
It's been a pleasure.
Yep, right on.
Yeah, man. Thanks. Cheers, y'all.
Dilly dilly.
Yeah.
Here we go. So I'll say my little thing, and then I'll just say welcome to the program. Program. Welcome to the program.
Marijuana and program.
Yeah.
Tell me about better drinking culture.
Tell me about what's it? Because that I know that inner voice because it's like, what's this all about? It's like, you tell me what it's about. Like kind of arrogant.
Yeah.
Just tell me.
Yeah. Prove it to me.
Bingo. Prove it to me. That's it. All right, here we go.
Come at me, bro.
All right. Here we go. Hello, this is Kevin. Oh, shit. That's not it. What do I say?
What's my name?
Hey, welcome. Hey. Hey, crazies. Welcome to Crazy Beats Big, baby. Ready? Okay. Need to come up with a name for my fan base.
All the fan base crazy.
Crazies. All right.
Sup, losers.
Sup? Sup, fam? All right. Okay, here we go.